Ridley Scott for a long time now has been one of my favourite filmmakers. He has been the puppeteer behind some of my favourite movie universes like the Alien and Blade Runner films. One of the most fascinating aspects of his career is that you literally have no idea what he's going to do next. His filmography is so varied. I mean, after he did the Roman epic Gladiator, he did a sequel to Silence of the Lambs, then a war film, then a low-key crime caper, then a crusader epic, then a romantic comedy, then a period gangster movie. It just goes on and on. And it's not just that the genre of film he makes is so varied. Crucially, each film feels different. Look at the way he did American Gangster, the style of the film. It's so completely different to his next movie, Body of Lies, which again looks and feels completely different to his next film, Robin Hood. You would think they might be all directed by different people. The man was 40 years old when he made his first movie, The Duelists, a brilliant film, beautiful to look at as most Scott movies are. Amazingly, he followed this up with Alien and Blade Runner, and since then the quality of his work may vary, but it's always a matter of interest when Ridley Scott has a new movie coming out. Now, I want to preface this video by saying that Scott is a machine. He's an inspiration. To be 87 years old and still having your faculties in order is one thing, but to be banging out movie after movie, sometimes one each year, sometimes two in a single year, and not just any old film, but huge budget films with loads of extras and background crews, to be in charge of all this at that age and still be going strong is truly something else. Yes, there is Scorsese also, but in terms of purely theatrical movies, as Scott has said, the time it takes Scorsese to make one film, Scott can make 4. There's Eastwood as well, but his films these days, whilst good, are a lot more low-key than Scott's mammoth productions. I legit can't wrap my head around somebody making a Napoleon biopic and then a Gladiator movie one after the other at his age. Scott has actually been more prolific in his 70s and 80s than back in his supposed prime. He must have reached a point over the years where he is now surrounded by a team who are on the same page as him, so that collectively they can all produce these big budget pictures efficiently and quickly. Nobody alive quite does a historical epic like Scott does, and I think to an extent his filmmaking career is actually keeping him alive, in that if he slowed down or took a long break, he'd probably drop down dead. It does happen. And Scott, rightly or wrongly, is clearly in a place where he is content and happy with what he's doing. Much of the complaints people have about his films, he probably doesn't even see as faults. Everybody's different, they all have different reasons for making films. Scott just seems to enjoy the process, I guess. You've got some directors like Kubrick who will pour research into a project for years and painstakingly navigate through the filmmaking process, even abandoning projects years on if things aren't right. Funnily enough, he was also working on a Napoleon movie too. Then you have other filmmakers like Sidney Lumet, who made so many classics. But he was a guy who loved the work so much, he'd even pull out a script from his drawer and film it if he had nothing else on. Scott most likely falls into the latter camp. He's also got that snarky old man attitude of someone who is simply too old to care what you think. I mean, you can see it in interviews he does. Look at the one where he tells historians who criticize Napoleon to get a life, as if dissecting history isn't exactly what those guys' lives are about. And no rambling from a random guy talking into a microphone like me who hasn't gotten anywhere near the heights of Scott, who's been making films at the top level for half a century, is going to change anything. I mean, all else being equal, he's almost 90. He's not going to change. And if it's a choice of him making the films he is currently making, or not making films at all, I'm sure a lot of us would prefer he continues, for the odd gem in his filmography that still comes out. Still though, there's some thoughts I have that I want to say. I think the only major consistent complaint regarding Scott, at least the one complaint I've always had, aside from constant historical inaccuracies in his works, is that usually it's the script that makes or breaks his films. They usually look amazing, actors bring their game, but if the screenplay is not up to scratch, the film fails. Prometheus is quite an interesting film of his. Sure, it's a gorgeous film, the effects are amazing, the actors are great, but the script is completely nonsensical and the characters are among the most stupid ever to grace the screen. He's never seemed to be able to work out a good script from a bad one. Hence why the quality of his films varies in spite of his direction usually being on point. But with his recent run, it seems like he's gone from not recognizing a good script to not even caring. I mean, I'm not going to list out the film's flaws here as I have a review of it on the channel, but Gladiator II seriously feels like it wasn't written by a human, instead done via an AI that doesn't understand human emotion given the way characters act and interact in that film. Let's be honest. Yes, he does not make truly bottom of the barrel stuff, but since maybe Robin Hood in 2010, his filmography has mainly been full of stinkers. As quick as he makes films, a fact he is very proud of, how many from his recent run have even been good? The Martian was solid, but it's a movie Scott could have directed in his sleep. The Last Duel was great, and I'm not taking anything away from Scott's direction, the true genius of that film was in the script and the editing, two elements of movie making Scott has little input in. Why not slow down a little, take time to work on a movie story, get a feel of the film, iron out the snags, instead of ploughing through multiple projects one after the other? But the way he talks about his movies in interviews, about his achievements, he talks like a managing director of McDonald's who's proud of the amount of new burgers his branch is producing, without stopping to read the reviews of them. He doesn't talk like a man infused with the story of the film he's making, the characters and all that. He usually talks about the technical elements, about how he manages so many extras on these epics, things like that. To be fair, Scott has always been someone interested in the technical elements. Sigourney Weaver once complained that he was more interested in the props of Alien rather than the actors. And I saw an interview once with Michael Fassbender, where he talked about experimenting with different accents for his character in Prometheus. He more or less said he tried one accent, and Scott was like, yeah, sure. Then he tried a different one as he didn't think it was working, and Scott was like, yeah, sure. My takeaway from this interview was being shocked at how the director of a film had such little input or interest in how a major character would talk in his film. Surely something pretty big that you'd expect a director to play a part in cultivating. Scott would probably fit right in during the 50s golden age of Hollywood, where directors were more workmen who oversaw production, and often churned out a huge number of projects compared to today's directors. Perhaps it's this kind of attitude, one where he just kind of expects the actors to do their thing while he does his, that we end up with situations like House of Gucci where everybody shows up to the film doing wildly different accents, from Adam Driver's college student on a gap year to Rome, to Jared Leto's Super Mario impression, to Jeremy Irons straight up not even bothering. I wonder if in Scott's earlier days he was surrounded by proper backroom talent, so the collaborative process was more richer. The people around him knew what they were doing and they were young and hungry. Maybe now though, because of how high his stature is, he's essentially surrounded by yes men, people he knows and gets along with who don't challenge him nor rock the boat, instead ticking along without ever really doing anything noteworthy. Like I can't work out why he continues to work with that hack, David Scarpa. If you look at behind the scenes of Gladiator and Alien, you notice there were many happy accidents about how things came together in a collaborative way through multiple people. Scott always relied on others around him to make it all come together, but now he's simply too high up for people to avoid just nodding and agreeing with you. The level of detail in Alien is insane. The production design is outstanding. The production design in Blade Runner is 70% of the film's quality, and part of that has to come from a director who is fully engaged with the details. But if he isn't, as he is these days, then why would the people around him be? But one of the things that hurts me about Scott is that he doesn't even seem to know what made his great films great. I mean, the insanity to take the space jockey from Alien, one of the most terrifying and awe-inspiring segments of any sci-fi film I've seen, evoking a sense of wonder and the fear of the unknown, and to make a sequel having that thing essentially be a big albino whose species is also the creator of the human race was just so dumb. And then his follow-up, Alien Covenant, mixed the interesting but misplaced ideas introduced in Prometheus with a half-baked, by-the-numbers Friday the 13th style alien film in the second half of the movie. I mean, Scott once said he doesn't do sex scenes in movies because they were boring, but Covenant had a schlocky, pointless shower sex scene, as if a celluloid admission that, guys, I just don't care anymore. Not to mention he cock-blocked Alien 5 for his engineer's storyline, which never even got a conclusion. There's Blade Runner 2, But at least in that case, Scott was too busy to make it, so he gave the project to a younger director in his prime, and we got a great film out of it. But not content with trying to whack-a-moling two of his greatest films, he makes a sequel to Gladiator about 25 years later. Literally the last film that would ever need a sequel. It's just like, why does Gladiator need a number 2? Make another movie maybe set in that ancient Roman world, sure. But a sequel where a character is retconned to be Russell Crowe's son and goes through the exact same journey, just with a lot of nonsensical character moments and things that don't make sense, it's just an utter bore, Ridley. You'd expect a sequel to Gladiator to be made by some coward hack bending to Hollywood suits who are looking to kickstart a new franchise, not the man himself who made the original, who has enough clout to make anything he wants, and he chooses Gladiator II. And what's worse is that his recent films lack a flavour, they lack a soul. I watched the original Gladiator a few days ago again, and the difference in quality between the two films is astonishing. It's not that Gladiator 2 is bad from a technical perspective, it's just so generic, it doesn't make you feel anything. Everything is by the numbers, going through the motions. It all feels so sanitized, so ordinary. Not to mention this ugly, dark, polished and bland tint his past 5 or 6 films have all had. The stale feel of Scott's recent films is indicative of the way in which he shoots them. As many people know, Scott filmed Gladiator 2 with as many as 8 cameras per scene, then having the editors piece together the desired shots in post-production. It's this kind of efficiency that allowed him to shoot a movie as big as Napoleon in just 62 days. But what this tells us is that it seems to be a process without vision and a goal for the feel of a scene and what senses the camera work will evoke. Instead, it's just, let's just shoot as much coverage as we can and we'll piece it together in post. His own editor on Gladiator 2, John Mathieson, criticised him for it, saying the multiple camera culture is affecting the quality of Scott's work, adding that he's lazy, has changed and has become impatient. He said, "It's really lazy. It's the CG elements now of tidying up, leaving things in shot, cameras in shot, microphones in shot, bits of set hanging down, shadows from booms, and they just said, well, clean it up. He is quite impatient, so he likes to get as much as he can at once. It's not very good for cinematography. You can only light from one angle. Look at his older films, and getting depth into things was very much part of lighting. You can't do that with a lot of cameras, but he just wants to get it all done. Having lots of cameras I don't think has made the films any better. It's a bit rush. That's changed in him. But that's the way he wants to do it, and I don't like it, and I don't think many people do. But people love his films, and he's Ridley Scott, so he can do what he wants. People want to shoot multi-cameras because they get lots of performances and they can put lots of people in. But there's not the care. Now it's this thing of generally covering stuff rather than me being the cook, cooking you something wonderful in my kitchen downstairs. You just go to the supermarket and get one of those really big trolleys and you just put your arm on the shelf and just chuck all that stuff in and we'll sort it out later. I think Mathieson's bang on the money. Comparing his earlier films to his recent ones in terms of the colour, the lighting, the score, the feel, it's night and day. Gladiator had contrast, grit and soul. The sequel looks like a Marvel movie. Napoleon, for example, is legitimately an ugly film. It's like he's getting as much coverage as he can because he doesn't know what he wants. There's no time because there's the next movie to think about. Many great directors use multiple cameras per shot, 2, 3, sometimes 4. But if you need 8 for every scene, you're doing something wrong and there's gonna be a lot of waste. It speaks to an undisciplined and unrestrained scattergun method of shooting, unlike many older directors whose films usually become smaller scaled. Hey, if it worked, we'd have no problem. But Scott's movies are suffering and they're not making buck anymore either. So you do wonder when the suits will decide to stop bankrolling these bloated blockbusters he makes. But you know what's interesting? Scott apparently has always filmed movies like this. And in spite of the multiple cameras, again which he's always done, apparently he still storyboards scenes as well. So why have things drastically changed in recent years? Maybe the issue is actually the opposite of laziness. Maybe he knows the clock is ticking, so he has stretched himself thin over multiple developing projects. So the quality becomes lackluster as each individual film lacks the level of care it needs. And it's a real shame because so much of what Scott has done in recent years just needed a few things here and there to take them to the next level. Do senior citizens get ADHD also? Scott might just have it. And it makes a difference because of the kind of director Scott is. Coppola or Scorsese, for example, are directors who have vision, who make stories where they have something to say, a message, a discussion, a voice. So we can laugh at Megalopolis but still acknowledge that Coppola was trying to say something about society. We can say the special effects in The Irishman weren't great but acknowledge that Scorsese is thinking about death and legacy. Scott doesn't have that. He's not that kind of director with a unique voice. So when the purely visual and audio elements in his films aren't working, it's more noticeable and less forgiving, because what else do Scott's films have without that? So all in all, I just think the guy doesn't think as deeply as he used to when making movies. Every shot and cut from his older movies seemed deliberate, intentional, and done to serve a point. Meanwhile, do you even remember any individual shot from his last few movies? He's obviously approaching filmmaking from a different angle now, trying to get as many projects done as he possibly can. Maybe he just likes working with actors, being in that environment, and isn't interested in stuff like mise-en-scene and detailed production value anymore. He's efficient, but in and amongst all this, his ability as a storyteller has waned. I do wonder how much day-to-day input Scott actually has on his films. Maybe the name Ridley Scott has become a brand of sorts, a title that is put on a project made by a conglomerate. I can't imagine an 87-year-old man shows up on set and does the same amount of directing as he did in his 40s, especially since he's making films at a higher frequency now, and on bigger scales. So anyway, I'll stop there. I originally planned for this to be a short little discussion, but it ended up being quite long. What do you make of Ridley Scott? Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.